but I do not let you come in up till I do not put up this as to what the session is. Of course, women in mediation, but about the conference, Mary, can you tell us a little bit about the conference? I always put people on the spot. Last time I put Puja on the spot. Now it's you.
A little bit about which conference do you
This
want us to
conference
talk
that you're participating in.
This one, I want you to know, and I want to say this to Vikram and to anyone who's listening. He does an incredible job, and I think the opportunity to have a conference to talk about women in mediation is important. It's something we don't talk enough about. I think it's something there's been an increasing amount of research in the international community is going on about that. Certainly the UN 20 years ago started saying this is something we've got to be addressing. The numbers of women participating in mediation and in peace, and I'll talk about it more, is still not anywhere close to being equitable. So, and we have a world that is not at peace. Every morning I wake up and I just do a survey of all what's going on in all the countries and try to look internationally what's going on. And peace is something we need everywhere. So I think it's relevant. I appreciate Vikram for all he does. He does incredible programs. There's a few people that are always trying to bring these voices out. And Vikram, you have been at the lead of that group. And I just really honor you and appreciate the work that you're doing in leading, getting different voices to speak about important concepts about mediation.
Oh, thank you very much. That was the idea. Get all voices out there. It's people who, everyone matters. The point is, and also, like I keep saying, wisdom knows no age. So definitely. And of course, the conference started on 18th May, goes up till 30th June. I won't take time into all that. Let's go. But of course, women and mediation, we've discussed. Last year, we did this on Women's Day. I think there was 25 women from 17 countries who spoke about their experiences. And I did a short women in mediation with two people, Andrea and Sarah. So we've done that discussion. So of course, Mary, a little bit about yourself, and Puja can tell us a little bit about herself, and then we'll go straight into the topic. So please.
Oh, absolutely. And the conference you did was excellent. You'd invited me to be a part of some things, and I was actually over in Italy at the time, working with their International Women's Day. So and speaking there. So the timing just didn't work out. My background is that I am a licensed psychologist. I have been in the field of mediation for over 20 years, doing training for almost all of that time, but also working as a mediator. Much of my career has been spent in academia, and I've been a chair and a dean and an academic vice president. But my focus at this point is really on mediation. I did write a book that's now in the 3rd edition that Ken Cloak was very kind to write the foreword to on psychology and mediation. And this area of women in mediation is obviously, because I am a female and I've been working in this field, it's very relevant to me. And I'm from the States. I was the president of the International Academy for Dispute Resolution. I still work very much with that group and work with coordinating all of the law school tournaments that we do internationally. And that's a little bit about my background. I also write in the area of psychotherapy and how we can be more authentic people and be, live our lives being aware of who we are and how we can connect with other people. So this all kind of fits together for me.
Great. I think you've given me that topic. That next symposium on psychology and mediation is going to come up. So please participate in that.
I would be glad to do that. I actually am the first psychologist to write in that area. So, and it was because I was asked to teach a class in it, and there were no books available. And the only book that I did find was a nice book, but it was written by an attorney. And at the beginning, he said, "I've always liked psychology," and so I wrote this book. And I like law too, but I try not to write law books because my background's different. And so I thought maybe I need to put something out there. And I've been very humbled to be able to do that.
Yeah, so we'll do that symposium. Yes, Puja. Okay, so how does the psychology work on this? Can you read her lips or not? How do we can? She's saying she won't unmute herself. She's going to end up us understanding cycle.
There I go. I was so happy to say Mary, because we've been Facebook friends for quite a while, but
Yes.
thanks to Vikram, we are meeting face to face on this virtual mode. Somehow we never got an opportunity earlier. So hello to you, and thanks, Vikram. And I've been a hardcore practicing lawyer in the Supreme Court and High Court of New Delhi, Supreme Court of India, since almost 29 years. But last 15 years, my first training in the mediation world was in 2006, when I did a certificate course from Dallas University. It got me thinking, and then there was no looking back. Then I did my trainings, and now I'm more of a mediator than a litigating lawyer, because I don't like to now fight in the courts. It's very juxtaposed to my mindset. So I find that mediation is more satisfying, and it just brightens your spectrum also as to where disputes can be settled. And I always say no lock is made without a key. So the mediator holds the key and has to just, bring the parties together to catch hold of the bunch in the hand of the mediator, which key will fit into their lock, which they're holding on to. So I like my role as a mediator, and my experience as a lawyer has helped me in the domain knowledge. So, and also I have a lot of international trainings to my credit. I'm a SME level 1, Pepperdine, CMCIMI. So that is it. And I will not take more time, because Vikram will say she's only talking about herself.
I
will not steal the thunder from you. So let's go back to
this is topic. Your session. This is Women in Mediation is your session. I'm the spectator. So
thank you.
Mary's going to start us off. Yes, Mary, Women in Mediation.
Well, thank you. And it's good to see you again also. It's interesting. We become friends on Facebook, and we feel like we know each other, and we don't have these opportunities, and we need to find more of these opportunities, because it's these connections that I think are very important in the world today. And
for that, Mary, you'll have
really
to find lots of more Vikrams. You'll have to find. I'm also looking for them to put for my world mediation circle. I need lots of them out there.
We all do. Well, if I could share my screen a minute, I will go ahead, and I've got a few PowerPoint slides, and we can make this. We can shut that off. We can talk, but I am going to share a little bit of research just to kind of give us some grounding in what people are saying. Is that all right? Can I do that?
Absolutely.
Yes, please.
Can you all see that now?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right, good. I'm going to open the chat too, just in case I get any chat messages.
You won't get any chat messages. No one gets any chat.
All right.
All
Thank
disabled.
You.
I control everything. You know that.
I do know that. That is something you do that is unique, and I really appreciate it, because I do lots of different training, and I don't always have people who do that for me, and that makes it a little bit. All of a sudden, I've got chat coming in, and I'm trying to respond to things. And well, let me talk a little bit about the research, and then we can decide how we want to, Puja, how you want to move forward, and whatever else, what things I want to honor and hear what you have to say. And it really is a history of showing that women are effective in mediation, but they continue to be marginalized. This first piece of research, and most of these have been done comparing men and women mediators, that they found that this one was focused on how women promote peace, how, what genders are available, what men do, what women do, how conflict resolution is framed. And they found that women always seek more equitable solutions, even when it involves fewer gains to them. But what they're trying to do, even when they are working with another side and it's just two people, women are always trying to say, but what is going to work out best for both of us? And I think that's interesting. That's a unique piece that women offer. They also found that bilateral conflicts are resolved more effectively and equitably when both sides are represented by women. And I thought that was really interesting. And I think it may come from the first piece that they found from their research, that there's a real desire to make certain that whatever the resolution is, that it is satisfactory for both people. Another piece, Zhang and her colleagues. They found several things when they were looking at personality traits. What is it that makes women unique? And these were the things that they found that made women unique and different from men. Women were bridge builders and acknowledged the emotional elements of mediation. And that makes some sense, doesn't it? It makes sense that might be something that you would see. They also found through their research that the characteristics of openness, multi-partiality, looking at it from everyone's perspective, emotional support, and agreeableness were all higher for women. Again, we're looking at personality characteristics and what women bring to the table that is different or unique from what men bring. They also found that these particular traits that we have listed in number 2 are associated with more with positive peacemaking, as well as leadership behaviors. And that's something I teach. I teach a number of different classes in different countries, but teach a class on advanced negotiation to a graduate school here, and I always talk about that these skills we have that we develop in mediation, and I think all good mediators develop and have the chance to continue to refine these skills. These aren't just skills for peacemaking and for mediation and peace building, but they're skills that good leaders have. Good leaders listen. Good leaders respond to emotions. Good leaders try to bring people together. The next piece of research. Individuals from marginalized groups value women mediators who are equitable and fair in listening to both sides, and that women have a tendency to be more sensitive and more aware of the issues that marginalized individuals might have. And I think intuitively that would mean it may be because they have been so marginalized in this process. They found that men are able to reach agreements quicker, but when women reach agreements, those agreements are more sustainable and they last longer. And I think that's an interesting piece. Women also bring different soft skills and are a catalyst for women's empowerment, and that women help other women at the table who happen to be on one side or the other or a part of the process, feel like they can have a voice also and realize the importance of their voice in that process. These researchers found they looked at what's happening again with when you look at women who are involved in the peacemaking process. They say women are more likely to have a worldview and really be more collectivist and look at who is at the table and what does that mean, and what does that mean for all of us, not just from one particular perspective. They bring more empathy, forgiveness, mindfulness, optimism. And I'm going to pause a minute and give a brief story. I am involved in doing mediation training for judges and attorneys in Ukraine, and we'll be doing it again this fall. And whenever we do mediation training, and all of us know this who are watching, we certainly talk about forgiveness being one of the possible things that can happen. And as soon as I started talking about that, one of the judges raised her hand and said, "I just want you to know I could never forgive these people for what's going on. I've seen my family members die. I've watched all sorts of things happen. I could never bring forgiveness." And I said, I understand that. And if I had gone through what you went through, I imagine I would probably feel, I'm positive I would feel the same way. And I said, but I want you to know sometimes that's really important so that you can move on, not so that you can maybe make peace with the other side, but so that you can let go of that anger. That forgiveness is as important for you as it is for anything else. And she said, I don't think I could forgive. When we finished the class, the last session, I was getting feedback. I shared with them how humbled I was to be with them while they were in the middle of such an unheralded situation, to try to learn about peacemaking when they are in the middle of a war. And she raised her hand and she said, I want you to know after this class, I could listen to them now. I could listen to the other side. I know I could hear them. And that's the first step, isn't it? That's what we're looking for. So I think that's important. I think that's just being open to that. Women bring understanding of nonviolence. They are more apt to understand the mediation process and reconciliation, as well as how you can transform conflict. They are more community, diversity, creating relationship, building trust focused. And so that makes them a little bit more adaptive. They have a tendency to create a culture of peace. And at the same time, their research showed there was a real interest in activism and advocacy, helping systems, shifting systems, and really building more networks between people. I think this is the last piece of research that I'm going to mention for a minute, but let me go ahead and talk about that. Retberta and DuPont said that looking at peace agreement implementation, what matters, and they looked at a review of the literature, and they did look at gender as one of the variables. And what they found is that women's inclusion in peace negotiations is critical to the durability of peace. And I think that was underscored by some previous research that showed that when women are involved, the resolutions and the solutions that people come up with in their agreements are more likely to be lasting. And they also found that negotiated agreements done by men do not always mean a fair agreement for the women that are involved. And that may just be because of a lack of understanding of the importance of that inclusivity. I don't think any of these things are intentional, but I think we all have stereotypes. I haven't worked anywhere in the world where there weren't stereotypes from one group or the other. We all have it. Whenever I have people tell me, well, I have no stereotypes, I'm really worried because it means they're not even aware of what stereotypes they have. But it's so important that we think of the fact that we don't understand every other perspective really well. I certainly don't. I come from the United States. I always talk about that somewhere in my presentation. So people say, no, I know I have biases, but I'm working on them. I'm always working on learning another language. And I'm always trying to understand other cultures. And whenever I go visit someplace, I spend several months trying to understand everything from the politics to the culture to the language to the religion to the practices. So I do not come across as just another selfish American, because that does not help anyone. Let me see. Well, let me stop, and then I can ask my colleague for her comments, and certainly I have more things if she wants me to offer them, but I really want to hear what you have to say.
Sure.
Let me just tell you, the time is not an issue here because there's no session after yours. So it's all dependent on your time. We have time. Yeah, Puja.
Thanks, Mary. That was very interesting. And yes, I'm aware of the research which the UN has done with about a group of 22 women. And the outcome was as actually what you say. But I perceive things a little differently. I personally, in today's time, where we are talking of gender equality and LGBTQ rights and everything, I think we should not bring in gender to the table when we go in for mediation. Personally, these are just my personal views, and there's no reason for anybody to agree. Litigation has always been dominated by the male factor, because initially when we started, it was like the husband or the male factor is the bread earner and the breadwinner, and the females are caregivers. So with that, slowly and slowly now times have changed. Now women are leaders, they're all over, they're CFOs, CEOs, deans, you name it. They're in the NASA, they're doing so much of research. Look at yourself, your own self, Dr. Mary, you're at the top. So women have come a long way in a male-dominated society and a setup where they have always been considered subordinate initially. Now, yes, the struggle is still on. And when we say that, yes, females have got that female empowerment, that's more so in the urban lifestyle. The rural sector and the backward places, still there is a lot to be achieved. So we cannot have the socio-economic setup of a particular country, environment always differs, and so do the rights which females get. So women have been. So in my humble opinion, I feel that litigation being a hardcore male-oriented and dominated setup, females were there. When mediation was introduced, so since it was considered as initially a toothless tiger, I'm sorry I'm using these words, but this is actually what people felt, that it's a toothless tiger. And okay, we'll just go, we have nothing to lose, since maximum cases, at least in India, I'm talking about the Indian setup, were sent by court. So court and ex mediation is what we started with in India, and it's still in the nascent stages. But when people started seeing the outcome and the results, so it has now picked up momentum in a way that everybody wants to be aware. There are workshops, there are sensitization projects, and there are trainings which are being undertaken by all, including male and female colleagues at the bar. So initially, there were only more of female mediators, because women are primarily considered to be having more patience. They are more, I would say, they have the capacity to bear more. They're more patient listeners, and active listening is a very important part. Men have that shortfall that they lose the concentration quickly. That is something which is genetic. It is like usually. I'm not saying that everybody is not like Vikram to have a lot of patience to hear so many, but generally speaking, men are considered to be like, more action oriented, whereas females have the more patience. Like, I'll give you a little example. Before there was the GPS enabled, a man will take 20 minutes going on the wrong route, but will not ask anybody on the wayside, where do I have to go? But a female will stop and ask, please, can you guide me? So it is something which is there in the cerebral difference. It is nothing to do with the physical strength. It's a cerebral difference which male and females have. So now I feel that, yes, today also women are more active. That is probably because females started early. They saw good sense in mediation. So there's more experience they have. But I would give it to the credit of the male mediators also, that they are equally good. And yes, they are coming up, but they have joined the bandwagon a little late. So probably they have a lot of catching up to do. So that's what I feel.
What I want to point out there is, of course, I'm sure few people maybe would discuss it, is the aspect of the woman's side and a man tapping into that part. And I just put it up. Of course, Puja knows about this, but yes, I must put it up, because I always feel that discussion doesn't really happen. And Puja will, of course, take you through it, but I will just put up the images. In India, we have a god who is half man, half woman. So the aspect of tapping into that aspect is also, I mean, in this case, a divine aspect. But I think this is where the concept of women and men, the
Merging.
gender part, yeah. Otherwise, the gender part and all that, of course, all those discussions can happen. But I think this aspect, and in relation to mediation, because Puja, what she just said, she was just being nice to me that about my patience, I'm sure. But I'm just saying that those kinds of things are connected with women. It doesn't need to. I think men can also tap into all those things that women generally are known for, the soft skill aspect of it. So this is something that I want to put out, and Pooja can maybe elaborate more on this aspect of the
Sure.
Ardhanarishwar, please.
So as per the Hindu religion, there are three gods. One is the Brahma, who's the creator, the Vishnu, who is the preserver, and Shiva, who's the destroyer. So what you saw is Lord Shiva and his consort Parvati. So the Lord Shiva without Parvati loses his mental equilibrium to stay calm. So once there is a story that Parvati, who had married Lord Shiva against her father's wishes, who was a king, they abducted and killed her. So he actually went to a stage where there is a Tandav dance. It is the dance of destruction. He was about to break the whole of the civilization, the earth, and everything. So I'm just making it simple so that you can understand. But the minute he saw Parvati, he mellowed down. So there was so when the two amalgamate together, the male and the female, so then the equilibrium. So what I understand from this is that if I need the aggression, I have to bring out the male gender in me. And if the man needs to be calm, he has to bring out the female hormones or the gender in him. So that gives a kind of a balance to every human being, because we all have the hormones inside us. It's what is there, which is predominant, that decides our gender. And our Chief Justice of India has given a very progressive, statements and judgments on the gender equality and biases. So, so going and taking a cue from there, what we say is that gender is not the physical body you have. Gender is what you think in the mind. So where the setup is there, like I personally would only think like a female because that's there in my brain. But there are many. That is why we have people who have suffered the LGBT who were not recognized initially. So a male trapped in a female body and a female trapped in a man's body. So we need to respect them, because that's how our society is going to evolve and branch out. So it is all about respecting each individual. And that's what Ardhanarishwar embodies, is that you have to have the balance and then take things forward. So when, especially in a matrimonial matter, when parties come before me, so there is that prejudice in the mind of the participants and the party, the female especially, that the father, the mother, that me being a lady mediator is definitely going to have an edge towards them. So I have to actually tell them that it doesn't matter to me. So in the opening statement where I set the ground rule, I have to harp on that impartiality, that for me, both parties are the same and I have no personal interest or equation. So then the parties understand that I am not going to have any kind of a bent towards the lady in the dispute or have anything against the man and consider him to be some kind of a barbaric human being who's, giving atrocities to his wife. It may be vice versa, for all I know. Because as mediators, we only know what the parties disclose genuinely to us, especially in the caucus. So we do not know what is going on behind the scenes. We have to extract the information from them. So that is where the mediators' own domain knowledge, the way you put across questions. I always tell the parties that I'm going to ask, I'm being the devil's advocate, I'm going to ask you difficult questions, but it is only to understand your case better. And the freedom that you have is, it is a voluntary process. You can choose not to answer that question. You can say, I do not wish to answer this question, and I will not impose it on you. So there lies the beauty of mediation. But as a female, yes, sometimes you do feel that it is not that the prejudice and the bias is not in your mind, but the parties have this bias that being a lady mediator, will she be able to understand this problem, especially in corporate matters or certain other matters where a little bit of technology is involved? So you have to actually show that, yes, you do have the domain knowledge and you do have the understanding. So bias is not in my mind, bias is in the minds of the parties when they come before a female mediator, that whether she will understand. So they come with a lot of cynicism in their mind. So that sometimes I do feel even today, but like one session or two sessions, and then they gain the confidence, and then the mediation is on track. So that is what I have to say. Thank you so much. Mary, your views.
Oh, thank you. And I'm so glad, we're probably more in agreement. And I want to at least also frame where the research is coming from. But let me talk about, and I appreciate you sharing about the Hindu, the importance of the Hindu, because one of the psychologists that I've studied, and I've studied many of them, but Carl Jung talked about that, about the male aspect in the feminine and the female aspect in the man, and how important it is to have a balance there. And I believe he drew heavily from Hinduism when he was writing that in his theory. So that is very much a part of the psychological understanding. And I think if we as individuals, as mediators, or even as just people, if we, Carl Jung believed this happened as we, in the second half of our lives, not when we were young children, but as we got a little older, then we might become more balanced. And the hope was we would be able to draw on both of those. And it sounds like you do that very well in your practice. And to be honest, for me to survive, I had to learn how to deal with that also, because you can't just rely on one side. You have to have both.
Yes, absolutely.
So I would totally agree with that. I also liked what you said about LGBTQ, because I think that's something the research is just now starting to look at. But it is so important to understand that there are people who have not been a part of these discussions, who've not even been a part of the research or what we're talking about. And that is something that needs to happen. I still feel some of the research, the reason I think it has validity is because it's not looking at our women, our men, and I think we need both men and women. And I do think we need people who are balanced within themselves. What the research is showing, though, is that some of the people that they were surveying, and some of these studies were done in different parts of the world, is that women are showing some strengths, and they're not always being included in peace building efforts. And that we need to look at the fact that women do have things to offer, but sometimes stereotypes and sometimes cultures, and it depends on the country. Some of your leaders have been very outspoken about how important it is for women to have a place at the table. And I know that that's true in urban areas and some of the other areas where I've also given presentations in India. I know they're still struggling. It's easier in urban areas than it is in some of the more rural areas. And to be honest, that's true in our country too. And in this country, it started a little bit differently. More men were mediators. And I'm going to give, my understanding about how it became that way. As soon as mediation became something that they thought might be an alternative to the court systems, which were backed up and continue to stay backed up, men said, who were attorneys, if we don't learn to mediate, we could be losing some of these cases. And so the majority of the people who were mediators were men. And so there weren't very many women at all. And in some states, that is still very, very dominated by men. And where I'm at in the state that I happen to be in, there are about an equal number of women and men mediators. And some for some practices, there's actually more women than there are men. But I think what we're saying that's similar, and I hope that if I've heard you right, and if I haven't, please help me because I may have missed something. We need both. We need both. We need all of us. And we all need to be very sensitive to that male and female part. We need to be aware of the diversity that's out there. And that if we want to be the very best mediators we can be, we will have that in ourselves. We will know how to deal with that in ourselves. And the piece I think is important is, as a mediation community, we need to make certain in areas where women are not even being included in the peacemaking process, that we make certain that women and LGBTQ and diverse voices are included, because if they're not, and some of the assumptions, and I read up about this, why do they only do that? And the assumption is, at least in the peace building community, they say if men started the wars, then men have to be the ones that solve them. But the research shows that the people who start the wars are not always the best people to be trying to make it work. And just to try to make sure that we get all the different voices. Am I hearing you correctly? Does that make sense to you?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm in total agreement to what you're saying, that yes, we need to have more women into the peace building process, because as we were in agreement that it's also the socioeconomic conditions, the countries, and the setup where you are, that how many opportunities one is getting. So all that definitely makes a world of difference. So yes.
I think one thing is there, that in certain countries where you would think that women are not in the forefront in terms of expressing themselves, but actually play a very important role at the back in relation to, I'm saying about, of course, dispute resolution, conflict resolution. They are actually playing a very important role behind the scenes. And it's important to get them into the picture, because they are in the picture, but not being in the picture. So I think
not as front runners as of now, but slowly it's catching up. As we started the topic, I had said that it was the stereotype, as Mary had pointed out. The stereotype mindset is that man is the breadwinner, lady is the caregiver. So that has those shackles of stereotype has taken a little time to break through. But yes, it's happening. But now with the advance, like, who could have even perceived or thought about it that one fine day we'll be sitting across various cities and borders and across the seas and having a webinar. So now with the advancement of technology, where the reach out is more and people are becoming more aware, awareness is more. So I don't think so we're going to be lagging way too behind. But yes, those who have to help the have-nots. Till that does not happen, things will not move. We cannot just, have a kind of a daisical approach that somebody else will do it. Why should I do it? No, we all have to collectively do it. I do not have to go with the thought that since it does not concern me or it does not affect me, so I'm sitting pretty in my cushion. I don't have to struggle and strive for another. No, that is not humanity. That is not what any sociologist would agree to. That is an animal instinct to be comfortable with one's own self. Since we are Homo sapiens, we are human beings, we need to help each other. We have to pull the others who are less fortunate to be on the same level. So that's what I feel can change the whole paradigm. Like, a paradigm shift can happen.
I would agree. I would agree very much. I think, and it's going to take all of us being really aware and making certain that we are inclusive and inclusive of the different voices that need to be at the table. I think being complacent, we're not at one of those times. They showed a picture of all the people that were involved in mediation of what's going on, and it was a few months ago between Ukraine and Russia. And there was not a female member anywhere in any of the discussions. There was, and then somebody came back and said, well, who's working behind the scenes? And unfortunately, in that particular conflict that's still going on and is causing even more problems now for Russia, is there's nobody even behind the scenes that's working, that's all just, and I can't help but wonder if these aren't people who are not necessarily, as balanced as they could be in terms of the male female inside of them, because all that keeps happening is it keeps getting more and more, it keeps escalating.
Yeah, it's an brutal aggression which is happening. So all they need is a female to hold on to the reins and bring them to senses.
Well, we need someone to sit in and say, can we just set everything, we're not trying to solve anything, but can we hear where you're coming from, and let me listen, just listening for a while, instead of trying, I just think it needs to back up and set off everything until people start really listening and hearing where each other is coming from. And I, at this point, I know we have really good people who are involved in trying to help. And I know I've known a number of people I've worked with that have been trying to insert themselves in different parts of the process and try to be helpful. And there just has been no interest in getting any other viewpoint at the table. So and I believe whenever we have one conflict in one place, it affects all of us regardless.
Absolutely.
Because we are one world, and as much as we like to believe we're all political divisions, and I think that we are all more united and connected than what we want to sometimes believe. And I just don't think it helps any of us to have this continue to escalate.
I think the important thing is that whatever happens on the global level is what is the reflection of what happens at a local level, be it in the community or whatever. It's just that. So for me, the idea is to change at the grassroots level, at the local level, and I feel over time, at the global level, we'll see that same thing happening, and then that is where the aspect of the woman as a woman, or the connecting to the woman aspect of as a person, whatever it has to happen, but that needs to be brought in for sure.
Definitely, especially like female mediators or women mediators, as you say, are very successful in community mediations, for example, because they can just get people to at least listen to them. Whenever I feel like, sometimes, as Mary, you said, that all people want is to be heard. Now, I'm reminded of when you go to the church, there is a confession box. And if a person is in predicament, am I wrong? Am I right? So they're talking to somebody who's not being judgmental, is just hearing. So when they pour out, they come back like, as if they've purged themselves. So it is very important in a way that when parties also come to a mediator, they should feel the same kind of a sanctity, the same kind of peace, and they're venting out without the other person being judgmental. So that feeling actually somewhere, since ladies have this, they are the more gentle of the sexes. They're more gentle as a gender. The stereotype, as you had already said. But even if you see, the physiology of a female is towards being gentle. So being a gentle sex out of the two, it does have an impact when parties come. So they feel more secure in that environment to share and to vent out. So that also is one aspect where I think ladies and women as mediators are doing better than men.
I think, and I would agree that the stereotypes are continuing to define a lot of the ways people perceive people, and I do think women do bring something different to the table. We can't tell how tall we all are, but I am not a very tall person.
I
say
am.
You look, they say you look so much.
I am 5'7".
Oh, I am 5'5", and people say you look so much taller. You look so much taller online.
But that's a good thing about the online world, that those aspects have been removed. It's the person that you are interacting with, and nothing else matters. And I really found that really important. I think it's really been good for human relationships in general. So you get all that out of your head. It's about the person
That's
that you
right.
see there. But I still feel that this, I mean, of course, again, I'll go back to the aspect of the woman part of the man. The development of that aspect will happen when we understand mediation in a manner which is the way I look at mediation, which I keep talking about, the humanistic approach, the heart soul spirituality and all, which might not be mediation for other people. For people, it might just be a settlement conference where, of course, what has come from litigation and that kind of an atmosphere, the male dominated kind of a practice, maybe for that, in that practice it might be a little more difficult to put that through to them, because it's a world which has been created in a certain way. We need to change that, but at least on this, the other side, there is lots of opportunity on this side, because this seems to be an area where not much has happened the way I look at it. So for that, in that woman aspect of even a man, it can be only women or only men, I don't have any issue with that, but that aspect of all those things that you in some way relate to women should be brought out, and that's a good area to bring it out.
You know, we don't talk about it as much, and I always appreciate, Vikram, the fact that you speak about the humanistic and spiritual part of this, because I think that that for me, and I believe very much in that also. I think that that's a part of what we're doing. I think whenever we have people who are coming together for some kind of, to work out differences, be it a conflict or you know, confusion, or people don't understand each other, whatever you want to call it, I think that there is something very, very sacred about that. And I always honor that space, because I think something can change when people are able to connect heart to heart, when people are able to really listen to each other. And there's something powerful in that connection. And I always try to honor that. And I think that that's true, should be true for men as well as women. And to be honest, I have not seen the research on that. And that would be an interesting thing to look at, how many mediators really, you know, embrace the spiritual piece of it. And I'm not saying religious, because I've in this country, there are people who do something called Christian mediation, and it does not look very spiritual, but it does look very much like something that comes out of a church, but isn't in the same vein as I think what I try to understand, which is there's something very spiritual about it.
So those are the kind of people I'm trying to get together. That's been and of course I found those people, and I'm sure there are lots more there who will come in as they see the process. They're all out there. They have that feeling. A lot of them don't talk about it, because sometimes you're part of a world where that is not discussed, so you don't. But when you get an opportunity, definitely. But just before Sherry's session, there was a session with Liliana. She's only working in the court system she's in Argentina, one part in Argentina, only the court system. But there also, she says, talking about how she brings her heart into it, and she's working from the heart. It's not about the fact that this is just a case number kind of thing. It's about getting involved with them. And with her, the situation is that you get a certain time period, and up till you have one running matter, you can't take another one. But she's taken months in some of them, because she's involved. So people bring their heart into that whole thing, and that's what I feel is important. And that's the kind of those are the kind of people we need out there.
So without having a passion for mediation, Vikram, honestly speaking, you cannot be a mediator. There has to be, it has to come from here. It's nothing to do here. Here is all domain knowledge, which comes later at the stage of settlement. But to get people talking to you, to get people to have that faith and confidence in you, you have to speak from the heart, and you have to be true and honest to the purpose. You know, I feel like, you know, there are only selected few people who can actually bring about something different on the table as a mediator. Training, simpliciter, you do a training, go on, take as many trainings as you want. May not actually, because you can only shine the diamond with the cuts if it is a diamond. The glass cannot be given the shape of a diamond. So it has to be that you have to be true to yourself that, am I good enough to be a mediator? Do I have it in me to be a mediator? Or some people are very good trainers, but not necessarily good mediators. Likewise, there are many mediators who are good trainers and mediators. So one has to be true and say, what is my calling? Am I a trainer? Am I a mediator? Or am I good in both? So if the day one is true to one's own self, everything is sorted in life. So I always believe that if I'm not comfortable in a matter, I will recuse myself from that particular matter, because for me, it might be just another case, but for those people, it's their life. And I should not be playing with anybody's life, because I'm going to bring bad karma onto myself, which I would never want to. So I am firm believer that one has to be true. And if one is true, one is kind, gives respect, gives dignity, then all you get back is the same respect and dignity. I'll just share, Mary, a very a true incident without taking the names of the parties. They were estranged couple having a child. And this is one of my favorite of the cases, besides a few more. I'll not take more time. So the estranged couple had not spoken to each other for over 3.5 years. And the daughter was staying with the mother. And then they came on the table and I just told them, you part ways, but you talk. Just, just say whatever you have to, so that once you part the ways and go on different routes in your life, that thing should not stay in your mind that this is what was left, because that poison will go on building. So you just talk. So they started talking. They hatched out all their differences. They went back together. The marriage was restored. They were blessed with another child, a son, and they named the son after my family name, Anand. That child carries my family name, Anand. Now, even if I had given the best to a client, no client will do that for me. So I became a godmother to a child without even being aware. They called up to say thanks when everybody was making an attempt to part us and going for divorce. You were the only one who tried to bring us together. You were patient. It took about 6 months. Initially, they wouldn't talk to each other, and I used to just sit outside the glass door and I used to say, just talk, please, just talk. I'm not asking you to live together. We're part ways. Get the divorce papers on the next date, part ways. But, went out to each other, whatever differences you had. And they were so trivial, so minor that, and I feel blessed that God gave me that opportunity to help somebody come together and start their life.
But before you, Mary, before you take us through your slides, let me just say Michelle has put a comment there. If she's still listening, I'm not going to take up your comment. Michelle, please join us. Yes, Mary, please. Because she's a panelist and we've had wonderful conversations in the conference with her. And I don't know why she wants to make a comment there and not join us. So please. Yes, Mary, I know you're short of time. So you had lots of slides to show us.
What a lovely story. That is just beautiful. And what a lovely testament to that power of listening and bringing people together and the amount of, appreciation you get and how people remember that. And, it's amazing to me. And, I've had people that I've worked with who said, now I listen to other people too. You don't realize this kind of changed our whole family. I was having a problem. This was a problem in business and I was working this out, but you taught me to listen. And now I'm doing that with other people. And Vikram, that goes with what you were saying about, and I believe this very much, it starts in communities. If you can change one person, then that one person can they'll take that home and they'll work with their family differently and they'll be differently. And I think that's the transformation we're looking for. But Puja, what you said, what a lovely and what a beautiful gift that was to you. That
Yes,
you have this,
absolutely.
that is really, and isn't that what we're all hoping for?
We need to have the domino effect towards negativity. Just one goes and every negativity just is like, just goes away. So we need the domino effect for negativity, so that people's life can be more happy. It's a journey, so everybody has a right to be happy. In fact, my name in English means prayer bliss. Puja
that's
Anand.
lovely. Puja Anand. Oh,
Yes.
I will not forget that. That's lovely.
Thank you.
At some point, Puja, someone, Aparas is there. He said, "Well said, Ms. Anand." At what point he said that, I can't say, but
Thank
at
you
some
so
point he
much.
was saying something.
Thank you. Thank you to all who are taking out time to join and to listen to our views and opinions. I was just asking, Mary, you're which side of the coast? East Coast, West Coast?
East Coast.
You're in East Coast. Okay. I might be there in the winters. My family is in Toronto.
Okay. Oh, well, that's, if there's any way we can, I will be over in Lithuania in November.
When I come to Canada, I do come to the US also. So
Okay,
might see me.
good. Well, let me know. I will be over in Europe, in Lithuania, in Eastern Europe in November. I'll be there in November, I know, and I have a couple of other things that I will be doing, but definitely Lithuania in November. So
come to India, then come to New Delhi.
Oh, I would love to. I would love to. And I've done a lot of programs and training and things throughout Delhi and through New Delhi and through different parts of India. I've worked in areas where there was not very good Wi-Fi, but to work with people who are just trying to figure out how do we connect and work together better. And that's what I hope we're all trying to do, is just trying to make things a little bit better. For me, it's for the next generation. I want better than I want things better for the future.
But which means you haven't been here for a long time, because we've got good Wi-Fi now. We've got good internet connectivity.
Wonderful. And in fact, the next generation, I just about 2 weeks ago, we did a workshop. I am the Joint Secretary of Madhyam International Council for Conflict Resolution. So we had done a workshop in one of the universities, which is a very prominent university of Delhi. So there were 80 students, like 250 had opted for, but we said, no, 40 is the limit. But then the dean requested at least allow 80, because otherwise we will not be able to have more workshops. And talking of women in mediation, that class almost had a division of 70% of girl students and only 30% as boy students.
Okay, but what we have to do right now, we have to give Mary a chance to take her presentation through, because she's short of time, a bit short of time. So Mary, you want to take us through your other slides?
Michelle is not joining?
No, Michelle. No, Michelle, we just told her he's not. yeah, Mary.
You know what? I feel like we've had, and I think what we've had has been good. I mean, I've got a few more slides, but I always over prepare for everything. That's just what I do. It's
no, you've put the effort. We must see that. No, you've put the effort. We must see them. Please take us to them. I know like I said, you're short of time, but I'm sure you can take out those 5-10 minutes if you can. I'm not going to pressurize you, my Mary. It's totally.
And to be honest, we talked about some of these things. We talked about what was going on in the United Nations and how important that was, and the importance that women do have. And I just think it's getting those voices. And if it's LGBTQ, if it's women, if it happens to be a minority group, whatever it happens to be, a group that's been marginalized, I just think that there's a value in having those different voices at the table. And these were things that we talked about already. So I felt like we kind of got through everything I was thinking we would do. And it just isn't that interesting? You kind of think of things, and then all of a sudden, when good people come together, you start sharing ideas, and it's like, oh, we're all going to get there, and we don't need the slides. It's been interesting. There was some interesting research because some people kept saying, and I work with some of the online mediation groups. They said, well, in online, women will all be equal, but not all women have the same level of computer skills that men do. And so that is not proved an equal and equitable ground for women to participate. Because I was trying to say, well, what is it like in some of the other areas of mediation? And I just think we need to be aware that we've got to try to include that. This is an interesting thing. We know that men stereotype, women stereotype too. And sometimes, and I bet, Puja, you've noticed this too, sometimes women are as hard on other women as men are on women. I've experienced that. I know you have.
I agree.
And I've got a person who I got a chance to work with for a while, Gail Evans. She was, I think, the only female VP for many years at CNN. And she wrote a book, Play Like a Man, Win Like a Woman. And she has written a lot of, I mean, she just is a really powerful person. And she said, listen, if you don't like something another woman's doing, don't say anything. Keep it to yourself, because women we're all struggling hard anyway. We don't need to be hurting each other. If you don't like something, go talk with her about it. But for goodness sake, don't try to tear her apart, because the rest of the world is tearing her apart, and we don't need to hurt each other.
Yeah, they're watching.
It's true. And I'm just saying, UN put out booklets. To be honest, UN Women put out booklets. I started looking, and there are lots and lots of things out there of ways people are saying, this is how we make sure more women are involved. But those things aren't working. Many of them have been out there for many years. But I think, and Vikram talked about it. I think it's beginning at a local level. Certainly our own networks. If we are fortunate enough, as you have been in India, to have leaders say, we've got to be involving more women, I think that will make a difference. But I think for some of us, it's working on our own networks and making sure we include women. I know when I was president of the International Academy, the first thing I did is I added women. And for me, I added international women, because we were an international academy, but we didn't have international people on the board. And so what I did is, the first thing I did is I put women on, but women from lots of different countries, so that we had some different voices at the table, because I know when there are more voices, we're going to do better work together, because we need to hear everybody's perspective, because I don't know, but I do know that my colleagues and friends, they can all help us all be better together. But I think ultimately it begins with each one of us.
I love the last slide, mediation as a sacred place.
Yeah, it is. I think it is. I think that's what makes it so special. And you created that space for those two clients you talked about. I mean, that's what touched me. It touched my heart when I thought of that. I thought what it was like to be there, and what it was like to realize what would that coming together, how that was able to transform their relationship into something that produced a child, and that was something very positive. And now they are stronger because they've been through that. I just think there's something, I think if we look deeply and we have a heart, like Vikram was talking about, I think we know that that's true. That's been true for each of us too. And that if mediation is supposed to be a place to bring people together, then we need to make sure that that goes for the mediators and people who are at the table as well, and that we need to make sure everybody has a voice, and that we all need each other. That was how I was going to end that. But it was so much better as a dialogue than it was just to see those few slides. So
Were
Thank you.
wonderful
And
slides, and you worked so hard. And I agree with you. It's like some kind of an emotional inertia to the suffering. When they come, physical injury can be seen; it's getting healed, but emotional suffering and the psychological suffering takes a lot of toll.
mhm, it
So
Yeah, I
does.
think I think what the important thing for it's a role of the mediator to actually bring, like you said, those voices out there. It's a
mhm,
role of the mediator, responsibility, I would think, to bring them in certain places, in certain cultures, I would say, where they are at the back. Like I said, they're at the back. Those voices are there, and they
mhm,
affect the process. It's not that you are just
Mhm,
doing it because you want to get women in. It's good for
mhm,
the process, because the men are going to go back, talk to them, and then, like you said, the long-term sustainable thing happens when those voices that they're going to, of course, in their homes, going to have, might not bring them into that whole
true.
conversation there. But I know, Mary, you're being polite and you want to rush off. So with me, never be polite. Not the best thing, because conversation otherwise go on. So thank you, Mary. Thanks a lot for coming in, and please
Thank
Thank
join
you.
other
you.
sessions.
Thank
Wonderful
you
day
so much.
ahead. You've just started your day. So wonderful day ahead.
Yes, it is. But it's kind of a busy day. But yes, and I know your day is ending. So, but thank you so much. And I'm always humbled and honored to be a part of these. And now I feel even more connected to my friend Puja. So I hope
Thank
we get a chance to connect again. Thank
you.
you so much. I
We
am
will.
so
Thank,
grateful.
thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Vikram.
Thank you
Bye.
Thank
both.
you very much.
Thank
Thank you
you.
very
Very
much for being
Thank
part
you.
of it. Yep. Pooja, if you have anything to put across, you can. I mean, you still
No, no,
are
no.
there. Mary has to rush off. That's the only thing. If you have any concluding remarks that you want to give, please, you're most welcome.
No, it was wonderful, wonderful sessions. And I was literally trying to buy my way out today because I had to go somewhere. So my
That's
friend
not.
jumped me that, okay, it's weekend and still you have to go for your mediation. So you go. I said, no, I had made a commitment and a promise is a promise.
So that was the whole idea behind those messages. That wasn't going to happen. You said somewhere Vikram says, no, you're not
Yeah.
required. He just gives me one word also and I'll take it. It wasn't going to happen. It wasn't going to happen.
Yeah. I said, okay, I'm not there. So is it okay? Like, I'm not sure, though I knew very well. I saw my name very much in the schedule. So I was just trying to buy my way out. But see, I always say one should not make promises which one cannot keep. So I keep my promises.
Absolutely. That's a
And
good
thank
thing.
you
And
so
that's
much. It's been so interesting, Vikram. And I will see you on the 30th now.
any other session you want to drop in, please drop in. You don't even have
Definitely.
to ask.
As and when I have the time to catch up. And you're doing a wonderful, wonderful job. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you for being part of